Hi. Let's talk about safe spaces. It is Jeffrey. This is the Jeffrey Marsh podcast. Welcome. Where do you feel safest? And in addition, I'll tell you a joke. In addition to the question, this week I'll tell you a joke. Why did the dolphin cross the bay to get to the other tide? Now that you're rolling on the floor laughing, let me say hello to you and welcome. And I'm so glad you're here. I am an author, I'm an activist, I'm famous on the internet for making videos. I am trans and I am non-binary. We're going to talk about safe spaces today. They get a bad rap by people who are rude and mean, and they're essential to humanity. So what makes a good safe space? Why create them? How are you going to create them in an activist sense? How are you going to make the space itself? Like, I'm going to give you tips to create a safe activist space to be able to support each other and do group activism or just groups of belonging and kindness, which, by the way, is its own kind of activism. But why make this podcast, Jeffrey? I give this speech sometimes just so we're all on the same page and we're all reminded. I had the toughest time finding a podcast that was safe, that was kind, that was inclusive, that included trans folks, right? That was loving, and that made me feel less self-hatey afterward. But also a podcast that gave me practical tips to live my life as a beautiful person and hate myself less at the end of it. You know, safe space, a safe space. Hello, the theme. Hello, the theme. Safe space in your ears with your earbuds, right? And so I wanted to make a podcast to strive to be that safe space. And this is it, the Jeffrey Marsh podcast. Hello there. Buddhism. Oh, if you're watching the video, I put on extra lipstick, and the lipstick is on my teeth. Pause, please. Leave all of this in. This is a safe space to have lipstick on your teeth. Okay, Buddhism and the Three Jewels. I am Buddhist, and I've studied Zen for over 25 years. Near 25 years, I should say. I'm making myself seem, sometimes I feel older than I am. Over 20 years and near 25 years. And the Buddha supposedly talked about the three jewels, Bodhi, Dharma, and Sangha. Bodhi being the truth of the universe. Dharma being the teachings from whatever lineage of Buddhism you're studying. And Sangha being the people. So we need safe spaces with people who are like-minded and like-hearted in order to survive life, let alone do spiritual work, let alone do activism, let alone move forward in our personal lives. So the Buddha knew it. I know it. You know it. We're going to need other people. The problem, I'm going to tell you a secret. The problem is people are largely selfish, self-absorbed, and untrustworthy. Many people are that way. So how are you going to make a group where people are trustworthy and kind and loving and love you and support you? Well, I'll tell you how to do that today. Why is this important to the listener? So in case you didn't get it yet, you need safe spaces. You need groups. You need support. But I also hope this is important to you today because you deserve a sense of belonging. It is those people who reflect our hearts back to us that we should be spending the most time with. It is those people that are on the same path and have the same goals as us that we should be spending our lives with and our entire times with. You deserve a reflection from the hearts of other people to keep you on track. And especially if you want to found a place of belonging, especially if you want to be a leader in a place of belonging, you're going to have to give a lot of conscious thought to how you want to structure that place. And in case it wasn't obvious, but if you just go all free and willy-nilly and do not give conscious thought to structuring your safe space, it will soon get very difficult to manage, and it may disintegrate, and it may blow up, and it may be filled with drama and difficulty and a tough road. And I don't want you to have to go through that. So what makes a safe space? And another thing that just dropped in, that I just thought of, this is an internal as well as external process. We're talking about external safe spaces today, but this is an internal process too. Creating the safe space within for the committee that is you and your life and your own mind. You contain multitudes. I've heard that somewhere. So I'll tell you a personal story about finding belonging, and it's in musical theater. I went to college for musical theater. I was going to sing, should I? Anything, instantly demonetized. Copyrighted material. I went to college for musical theater, and it actually was not a pleasant experience because I was an LGBTQ, and back in the day, I graduated college in 1999. So back in the day, they thought they needed to make us marketable by making us straight seeming. So they would give me like Bill's soliloquy from Carousel, and like they needed me to be more masculine. That did not go well, but of course they're not trying to then also make the cis and straight students more LGBT. It's only the queer students that they are trying to make into something that they're not. And that was a difficult experience. But the reason I found belonging is I realized whenever they had me do a project, it was like, do your best to be butchy butch and then feel like a failure when you can't. But whenever I had the agency, I would do a project. I cast myself as Dolly Madison, amongst others. You know, whenever I had the agency, it would be QAF. It would be rainbows. It would be Pride Parade. It would be gender expression. It would be non-conforming to the max. And that would be my way of having agency. And by the way, expressing myself and making sense of the world. And when you create safe spaces for yourself and others, you want them to be an expression of your view of the world, of your view of kindness, of your view of love, of your view of how the world works. So it behooves you to be conscious of that. We're going to come back in a moment. We're going to take a break, and I want you to breathe and tell yourself kind things and be loving to yourself. And in 3 breaths, 3 seconds, we're going to be back and discuss my 5 tips for creating a safe space. We're going to discuss my 5 ways, 5 things you should be conscious about and consider in order to create a safe space. We will be right back. Hello, we're back. Top 5 tips for creating a safe space. You may be hearing like jingle jangles in the background. It's just me wearing my jewelry, wearing my sunglasses in the chat. here are the top 5 tips for creating a safe space. And again, it's something that you should bring consciousness to if you're an activist. And this, I'm just speaking from experience. So my ways of having created safe spaces throughout my career and throughout my life for various kinds of people. You want to start every time you come together with all ears and all hearts. So kicking out a question to the group and listening to the answers. And you don't need to accomplish anything. You don't need to get anything. You don't need to do anything with those first few moments. It's just necessary with a group activism to set the tone of kindness and accepting all answers, accepting all feedback, accepting all inputs. And I would recommend actually making it a question that has nothing to do with your activism. It can be, how are people doing tonight? It can be, what's your favorite this? Or have you watched any, TV you like? Or, it can be an innocuous question, but you are setting the tone of listening and setting the tone of kindness and setting the tone of non-judgment for people. All ears and all hearts. Number 2, anytime you do activism or group stuff together, you must establish ground rules. This is a matter of respect and a matter of kindness, but people need to know that there are rules in place, even if there's just 3, 4, 5 rules. Folks must know, in addition to all ears and all hearts setting a tone, that there is a structure of rules for the road. And so examples in groups I've done in the past or groups I'm in personally, right now, when someone's talking, you don't talk over them. We respect what people have to say in this group. Another good one is, I've been involved in groups where you don't talk about your personal life. You may find that to be a helpful one. Where you don't talk about what you do, where you're from. You don't talk about things that are on a deep personal level. You may also wish to have a ground rule about who gets to talk when, so that the rules are clear. And it may be that you have someone who's facilitating a group and designates people and calls on people. Or you may want to have a round robin style where you go in order. Or you may want to have, we all trust each other and we can talk whenever we want to talk. And we try our best not to talk over each other, stuff like that. But you may want to make it a ground rule so that people know what the structure is and know what they're participating in. Establishing ground rules set a stage for things to be drama-free, and so that if there is some sort of, it's okay for people to be upset and to want to demand or command respect and to talk about that. And if you have the ground rules in place, they will have a structure in which to have that conversation, which is incredibly valuable. The third thing I would want you to do is celebrate a variety of opinions, celebrate a variety of backgrounds, celebrate a variety of people, obviously, but also celebrate a variety of avenues to get to the activism and the stuff that you're doing together. So in other words, you should discourage homogeneity. And me personally, what I find to be most effective is also discouraging a lack of opinions. Some people find an ideal of telling the group what they want to hear, or an ideal of some sort of going with the flow or going with the group. To me, that should be discouraged. And you want people to be in a group to be opinionated. You want people to be in a group to share their experience without fear, without guilt, without feeling like that's an imposition on the group. So you may want to have a specific policy or ground rule, that you celebrate variety and that what people are here to do is share their experience because we value that it may be different than the experiences of others. And that creates a very wonderful, safe space for people to be able to share from their experience. But you may want to say that specifically to the group and fold that into your number 2, your ground rules. But celebrating variety and celebrating a diversity of backgrounds and opinions should be a pillar and a structure for any safe space. You will want to have folks who are willing, and this sounds tricky, folks who are willing to police the safe space. So when somebody goes against those established ground rules, when somebody does something that is disrespectful in the group, to be able to facilitate a discussion about how that happened and how we hope that won't happen again, and to take action behind the ground rules to me, it's like a safe space guardian, someone who is willing to take action. And that is usually, the reason I bring it up this way is that is usually a designated person or persons. Not necessarily the group leader, but it could be. And that person is willing to call things out that need to be called out. And you may want to have a structure of a group where, of course, anyone is welcome to bring these things to the table. But you may also want to designate a specific person who is a guardian of the safe space and can be in charge of just keeping an eye on that as things flow and move forward within the safe space. And this last one feels for most people to be deadly, awful, and terrible, but when done in a kind way is essential and loving, and that's feedback. You'll want to encourage not just people to speak from their experience, but you want to encourage them to be able to talk about how things are going, how the group is landing, how the things that you want to get across are coming across, if they are in the way that you intend. That way, feedback is valuable. The judgmental kind of feedback of like, you should do this and you shouldn't do this, we don't want to deal with that. We don't want to have that in our safe space. But any safe space needs to have a feedback mechanism so that the safe space can become safer perpetually. Any safe space needs a feedback mechanism so that the people involved can feel that there is an evolution, that there is a growth. And the way to growth is feedback. And that means that you're going to have to find and work with people who are willing to give feedback in that kindness feedback way. But if you're a group leader or you're a group establisher, you're going to need to be able to find a way to accept feedback. And if it's offered in kindness, that should be a delightful way, right? That should be a kind way to receive feedback. But also, you're going to need to flex your skills as a group leader or a group manager or a group founder in receiving feedback, even if the person is not quite up to the standard of kindness, even if they're having a bad day or they're in a bad mood and they're coming at it in a way that is not quite the way that would be the kindest way for it to come about. But feedback is an absolute and should be a perpetual way to run a group. So, just to reiterate what we've covered so far, all ears and all hearts start each group session with a listening, a welcoming, a kind place where everything is loved and accepted. All ears, all hearts, listening and respecting. You'll want to establish ground rules for your group. You'll want to make those ground rules clear, and you'll want to bring the group into that process, by the way. You'll want to establish ground rules together because each person ought to be, and probably is, invested in the safe space together. So, doing activism in a group will establish ground rules. You want to celebrate a variety of opinions and a variety of people and backgrounds, and make it crystal clear that that is welcome, and that you want opinions, that you want people to be opinionated, that they are there to share their experience and their opinions and their input into the group. That should be encouraged at every turn. You'll want to have at least one person, or maybe the collective, be safe space guardians. People need to guard the safe space and the ground rules, especially in a safe space, so that it's a perpetual growth, so that it's a perpetual moving forward. And in that vein, feedback, finding ways to get feedback, finding ways to encourage feedback, finding ways to have feedback is essential and important in any safe space group. We're going to take another break, and just a breath, just a moment or so. And when we come back, we'll have my closing thoughts and encouragements and a little mailbag, a message that I received that from you all, from one of you all, that is just made my heart very happy. So I'm going to share that with you when we come back. Hello. It's time for thank you and closing. I will say how much I like you. I consider these pillars of creating a safe space to be essential for me in my work. So I hope that this podcast, the Jeffrey Marsh podcast, is one of those safe spaces. And those principles are ways that I have found to create a safe space, and I hope that I am showing by doing as well. And, speaking of feedback, your feedback is welcome anytime. hello@jeffreymarsh.com about whether that's going well or not and how you're receiving it. And I love hearing from you. If you want to buy my books and you want to support me, my first book is called How to Be You. My second book is called Take Your Own Advice. They are both love letters to you, and they're both bestsellers, but if you can help spread the word and continue their bestseller status, that would be lovely. I have such gratitude for you because you are dedicated to safe spaces. Safe spaces is not a dirty word to you. It is not a thing to mock. It is not a thing to make fun of. And I like that about you. Creating safe spaces probably to you means respect, kindness. If I may be delicate, it probably means people getting the opposite of the treatment you got when you were young. Perhaps, in a safe space. You deserve a safe space. You deserve a kind space. And, at the very end of the day, you could create one and live within it. And that may be your destiny. So please explore that today. And people often say to me that I am a walking safe space. And I was glad and grateful to share with you the things I have learned in becoming that safe space and the ways to do it externally, and with a hint there for some ways to do it internally. Before we get to the mailbag, I do want to say, as always, this podcast is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing that I share, even though I'm amazing, let's face it, nothing I share is meant to be a substitute for your personal therapist, for your personal physician, psychotherapist, or another qualified professional that knows you and is personally in your life. The mailbag is my favorite fun part, and I enjoy receiving your notes. Today, this one is very special, and I'm just going to interject throughout. Hi, Jeffrey. This was an email I got. My name is, insert name. My name is blank. I'm a 37-year-old NB trans girl from the Philly area. I found your videos before the pandemic, and honestly, before I was fully out to myself and my peers. And you have been nothing but a guiding light for me in the weird, confusing darkness that is gender expression in the modern West. Well said. I'm glad I could be a guiding light to you. This person says, I fall off social media very frequently for months at a time, and I was very disturbed to return to your YouTube channel and to see all sorts of hate spewed in your direction. Ooh, I'm telling you, goes with the territory to be me. I just wanted to be at least one voice in your inbox. This is going to make me cry. I just wanted to be at least one voice in your inbox today, telling you how much your words and visibility moved and inspired me when I was at a turning point in my life. I wanted to be at least one. You all are so kind and loving. Ooh. I wanted to be at least one voice today telling you, hey, you're doing everything right and you are appreciated immensely. In case someone, or maybe your own brain, we know about self-hate, don't we, ever tells you for a second that you might not be, right? That you might not be that person. Thank you so much for your kindness and your love. It's not the easiest to do what I do. Let's just admit it and say it. Say it out loud. Okay, good. This person goes on to say, I'm fully expecting this message to be buried. Ah, it was not. And I'm okay with that, they say. I just wanted to be at least one voice today telling you that you're great. I hope there are many others expressing the same sentiment. Thank you, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Much love. Much love to you. Much love to all of you. I get messages like this a lot. And to take time out of your day and to write someone like me who gets a lot of interesting comments on the internet, gets targeted on the internet a lot, for you to write and make sure I'm okay, for you to write and encourage me, is just the greatest honor of my life. I mean that truly, and helps me keep going. I read them. And I don't, because of the nature of my life and work, I don't check my inbox directly. But if you write a loving, kind message to me, it does get to me. And I have to thank you from the bottom of my heart for writing me and for saying kind, encouraging things, and for supporting a trans, for supporting a non-binary. You all are deeply gorgeous, delightful people. And it is especially wonderful to be on this journey with you. I'm going to go cry. I love you lots. I'm glad you exist, and I'm glad you have filled my life with love. Thank you for your kindness, and I will see you soon. Keep the love going, please. Bye-bye.